Welcome to This Explainer. I want you to imagine, just for a second, a gentle, papercraft-style storybook opening up right before your eyes. Today, we're going on a really fascinating journey straight into the minds of toddlers. We're going to explore a topic that has puzzled, amused, and honestly, sometimes terrified parents for generations. So let's dive into this beautiful animated world together and uncover the psychology behind some very special, invisible guests.
Picture this scenario. You're walking into the living room and you see your child, let's just call our little protagonist Little Cat for today, and she is having a full-blown, incredibly animated conversation with an absolutely empty chair. She's pouring invisible tea, she's giggling at jokes you obviously can't hear, and maybe she's even scolding the empty space for spilling crumbs on the rug. So has your little kitten ever happily chatted with thin air? If you're a parent cat watching this, you might have felt a sudden massive spike of panic right about then. You're probably wondering, is this normal? Are they lonely? Wait, are they seeing ghosts? Well, let me assure you right now, you are certainly not alone in asking those questions.
So, let's open up Chapter 1, Meeting Imaginary Friends. We're going to shift our perspective here from that sudden parental panic to a sense of developmental wonder. Because what Little Cat is doing, it really isn't a sign of a problem.
Seriously, if you've been losing sleep over this number, 65%, should be a massive, massive relief to you. According to research, and this includes a really foundational 1993 study by psychologists at the University of Oregon, as many as 65% of preschool-aged kittens and puppies have an imaginary companion. That is way more than half. Creating an invisible friend is an incredibly commonplace, totally normal developmental stage. It's a milestone, not a misstep.
Now, what is just so cool about this data is the sheer variety of companions that children invent. Looking at the actual records from that 1993 study, the friends kids brought to the lab were just wild. We have one child who literally invented a 1,000-year-old entity that is, quote, older than my mom. I mean, how creative is that? We have a tiny mouse named Gadget. We even have a child who just casually mentioned that their old imaginary friend Tompy was defective and had to be replaced. These aren't just vague, blurry shadows to them. They are fully fleshed out characters with specific eye colors, distinct outfits, and whole personalities.
But despite how common this is, there are still a lot of misconceptions floating around out there. Let's turn the page to Chapter 2, Busting Common Myths, and tackle the biggest fears that cause parents to worry about their little ones.
For the longest time, the old assumption was pretty bleak. People thought a child only created an imaginary friend because they were extremely shy or lonely or maybe lacked real-world social skills. But the research shows the exact opposite. Literally, the opposite. Children with imaginary companions are actually proven to be more sociable, less shy, and highly creative. They often have more real friends, and they participate in more family activities. They aren't retreating from the world at all. They're actually actively practicing how to engage with it by creating their own safe little social simulations.
Which naturally brings us to Chapter 3, Fantasy versus Reality. Because this is the ultimate parental fear, right? Even if it's super creative, is Little Cat losing her grip on reality?
Well, there's this brilliant cognitive test called the cookie experiment that answers this perfectly. Researchers basically asked children to distinguish between a pretend cookie and a real cookie. They'd ask things like, okay, which one can you actually eat? Or which one can you save for tomorrow? And the results were crystal clear. Children with imaginary friends perform equally well at distinguishing what is totally real from what is just for fun. They aren't confused. They completely know their invisible guest is pretend. They are just incredibly committed to the game of make-believe.
Let's move right along to Chapter 4, Driver of Development. This is where things get truly remarkable, because these friends aren't just for entertainment.
Let's say Little Cat's imaginary friend is, a giant pink elephant. That elephant actually acts as a vital psychological tool. First off, it helps regulate some really tricky emotions. If Little Cat is upset, well, maybe the pink elephant is upset too, and that allows her to process her feelings safely. Second, crafting all that dialogue for the elephant builds rich language and expressive skills. Third, the friend is an ideal projection to face fears. Like, a child who is terrified of the water might invent a brave dolphin friend to help them feel courageous enough to swim. And finally, smoothly switching between the real world and this fantasy realm, that heavily boosts their cognitive flexibility and open-minded thinking.
The whole concept is captured so perfectly in this quote from researchers Singer and Singer. They found that having an imaginary companion is, quote, an especially powerful predictor of the likelihood that a child will play happily and be cooperative. Engaging with these invisible animal sidekicks actually translate directly into better, much more cooperative real-world play with their actual friends and their teachers. They are quite literally practicing empathy and cooperation with thin air. And that brings us to Chapter 5, Living with Them. Knowing all these incredible psychological benefits is great, for sure, but what exactly are you supposed to do when your child insists that the invisible pink elephant needs its own seatbelt in the car?
Well, here is an actionable 3-step guide for all you parent cats out there. Step 1. Accept without exposing. Just don't burst the bubble. Don't embarrass your child by aggressively trying to prove the friend isn't real. Just accept the play. Step 2. Ask the friend questions. This is a total parenting hack. If little cat is throwing a tantrum and won't tell you why, try asking, "Hey, why is the pink elephant so upset today?" You will be amazed at how quickly little cat will reveal her own feelings through her friend. And step 3, guide positive behavior. You can use the companion as a role model. Simply ask, "Wow, can the pink elephant show us how fast he eats his vegetables?" It is a magical, totally stress-free way to encourage good habits.
As we close our storybook today, I really want to leave you with this final thought. These imaginary companions, whether they're a 1,000-year-old entity, a tiny mouse, or a giant pink elephant, they usually just fade away by late childhood. They are temporary, magical guides in your child's beautiful developmental journey. They absolutely aren't a cause for concern. They're a sign of a blooming, flexible, and highly creative mind. So the next time you see your little one hosting a tea party for an empty chair, how will you welcome your child's next invisible guest? Pull up a seat, pour yourself some pretend tea, and just enjoy the magic while it lasts. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep nurturing that wonderful imagination.
Knowledge grows through sharing. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to grow together.